All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Beth Harrison Cunningham, and I'm the manager here at the Family Resource Center. And we are very excited to have you all with us again this morning for our second part of our series around twice exceptional learners. Today, we'll be talking about family and school partnerships to support our 2E learners. And with us again, our amazing 2E specialist, Dr. Nonye Oladimeji. And we are so excited to have you back with us, Nani, and welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I am excited to be here. This is actually one of my favorite things to do now. So I'm glad that you all could take the time, even on a Friday morning, to join us. So as we start, like Ms. Cunningham said, we will take the question and answers later. So please save your questions and just listen attentively. This presentation today, this is why we're here. Please take a moment to look at it. We're here to understand what effective family school partnership looks like for parents in elementary, middle, and high school to support 2E learners. I want you to really focus on that word effective, because we all have partnerships that sometimes are not what we want them to be. But for today, we're looking at effective family school partnership. And I would not be in the right place if we do not think about our FCPS strategic plans and goals. So those are the goals. Effective school partnership would actually help us to attain these goals for our 2E learners. We'll have a strong pre-K through 12. Our students will feel safe, supported, included, and empowered. There'll be academic growth and excellence for our 2E learners. And the reason we do this work is for equitable access and opportunity. So the family school partnership will enhance that. And the goal 5 is for our students to grow up to have innovative and for tomorrow, for school, for careers in the future. So that's truly what the whole essence of what we do encompasses our strategic plans and goals. So why is it important? Evidence from research. I have a PhD and everything I do is based on evidence-based. And the work we do in FCPS is actually evidence-based. We try to do things that are based on research and what we know works for kids based on research. So the need for 2E learners, research tells us, is best met when families and all key stakeholders work together. And when we talk about stakeholders, oftentimes we forget that the students are also, they're the number one stakeholder. And at both the elementary and secondary levels, regardless, when schools, parents, families, and communities work together, students' academic and social emotional needs are met. So just not the academic. I know we all focus on academic, but that's truly not the only essence of schooling, is that we're looking at the whole child. And why is that important? So schools and families have essential roles to play in promoting positive development and academic performance for 2E learners. So when educators and families work together as partners, and the word is partner, partnership comes from the word partners. 2E learners have better opportunities to develop. So the partnership is critical to our 2E learners. And we cannot forget that they are the number one stakeholder. So I'm going to keep referring to them as the key stakeholder. The parents, you are number two, but we do not do school without kids. So I want you to leave this presentation today thinking about how are your children as key stakeholders participating in this partnership role. I started by saying effective partnership. And what is it? What is effective family school partnership? Effective family-school partnership provides a connection between the two most important contexts in which students are learning and developing, the home and the school. Kids spend most of their time at home. I know we have them 8 hours or 7.5 hours during the school day, but most of the time is spent at home. And that's where they're learning and developing. So effective school partnership will strengthen both the school and the home life. It has to be bi-directional. It cannot be one way. Schools can reach out to parents, but parents also have to reach out to school. But what we're here to talk about today is how do we make that bi-directional effective so that schools are not feeling overly charged by parents, or parents are not feeling ignored, or families are not feeling ignored. So that's why we're here today. And there has to be a connection between the students' learning and their overall development and success. That is the essence of this. Now we're going to talk about those principles of effective family-school partnership. The first is shared goals of maximizing learning experiences and outcomes. So there has to be a shared goal. The family can have a different goal from the school. The school and families have to have a goal that everybody can agree on in order for us to even begin to see what is that goal and how are we all working towards meeting the goals and the outcomes that we've all both identified. It strengthens relationships within and amongst the settings. So the relationship within the school, at our home, if there's an effective school partnership, those settings, the children are happy in both settings. And they grow, they thrive. Effective school partnership helps us to address concerns for children across home and school. So if a kid has a concern at home, and they can address it both at school and at home. If a kid has concerns at school, it can be addressed in partnership at home and at school. But in order for this effective partnership to even take place, there has to be trust. So trust is critical for us doing that. And I love this quote. It says, no meaningful school-family partnership can be established until relationships of trust and respect are established between home and school. A focus on relationship building is especially important in circumstances where there has been a history of mistrust between families and school or district staff, or where negative past experiences or feelings of intimidation has hampered the building of partnership between staff and parents. That's a whole lot. But I really want you to, I'm going to pause so everybody can take a few moments to look at this. This is what's going to drive that effective partnership, the trust and respect on both sides. So partnership at all levels, K through 12, is what I'm going to focus on first. Then I'll break it down to elementary, middle, and high school. In order to begin that partnership, parents have to plan, families have to plan how you want to be involved in your child's school. Not everybody is going to be the same. When my children were in K through 12 school, I was also an educator. So I planned how to be involved either by, I chose, that I was going to be part of the PTA. I chose that I was going to volunteer after school activities. I chose that I was going to, ensure that we had a good spring festival. So I had we made a choice as a family as to what it was going to look like. So I want families to start planning. How do you plan? Because you cannot be a partner and not be part of the school. So you plan how you want to be involved. And then you get involved. So not only do you plan, then you get involved. Whatever you decide to do, make sure you agree as a family. If you want to be you want to volunteer in the library, volunteer to help in the cafeteria, whatever you choose to do. Plan and then get involved. Make sure it's something that you can actually do. The first thing, you have to visit the school and learn about its culture and practices related to serving to e-learners. So don't just email or call. I challenge you to visit the school. Set up a time, visit the school, find out about its culture. What are your practices relating to serving to e-learners? Ask those questions because that's what forces school. If they don't have practices, if their practices are not in alignment, or the school culture does not support to e-learners, your question will bring that up and they will have to, give you an answer by making sure that they actually follow through. And everybody here is a parent or families are represented, but talk to other parents of two e-learners. Find out who else is in this school that is a two e-learner. How can I find out what's happened in the past? How can I support what I want it to be? You gather perspective and ideas from other families, but that's not the real truth. When you talk to the school, you talk to other parents, you're just trying to gather their perspective. There are several sides to a story. And then you volunteer. That's what you choose to do at the classroom and at school events. Schools are setting up right now for end of whatever quarter events or whatever event. Take the time, volunteer, sign up, take your child. That's where you see the culture. Is the culture receptive of all families? Or are there some parents that are not welcome or some kids that are not welcome? That's when you go to do that. Introduce yourself to school leaders. Every time you are at the school, make sure you introduce yourself to school leaders and ask questions. What are your school and district priorities? For those of you that are new to FCPS, what are the priorities and practices related to e-learners? If this was last year, you would not have a 2E specialist, but now at least the district has made that a priority to not only hire me, but to give me the opportunity to do my job. And how would you like the families to provide support? Find out from the school. You say, oh, this is what I do. This is the time I have. How can I support you? It's a partnership. And I'm continuing with partnership at all levels. Now, because you've heard from the school, you've asked questions, you've heard from other two e-learners, now consider your own mindset. Because our mindset really does count. Because some people have a fixed mindset, meaning if it's been bad before, it can't change now. You gotta have a growth mindset, knowing that what has happened in the past doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna happen now. You just heard about their perspective, you ask questions, you have but your mindset has to be of a growth mindset. And you have to get rid of preconceived notions about how school administrators and staff think about why they work in settings. You have to get rid of that, or else you can't have a growth mindset. And don't make assumptions. Learn how things work. Just because you think doesn't mean it is. So just when you ask those questions, ask again if you're clarifying questions, if you're not sure. Talk to the parent, talk to the teachers, talk to the principals. Don't just assume that what you believe is true. And take advantages of learning opportunities and ask questions. Communicate your concerns clearly in a constructive but non-judgmental way. So if you hear something or your child tells you something, the way you present that, remember it's a partnership. It's not us against them, and it's not them against us. So you have to not only communicate your concerns very, very clearly, but not in a judgmental way, giving the school opportunity to also give their perspective or their viewpoint. Approach conversations also in a collaborative versus confrontational way. Because when you confront, I heard this happen, tell me about it. But when you're talking about, let's collaborate, this is what I heard about our school. Remember, partnership. How can we work together to fix some of these concerns? That's collaboration, not confrontation. Validate the challenges that staff have and their expertise. People go to school to become either educators or special education teachers or administrators. So they also have expertise. I know some of our parents are also educators, but when we approach staff, in a very condescending manner without validating that it's difficult to work in a school with very diverse student population. And some of our educators are very young. Validating that I know it's difficult, I know it's challenging, and I know I don't expect you to respond to my email every 5 minutes, every time I send it. I know you have 48 hours to respond to my email because I know how hard it is to teach children. And I know you're an expert at this, so I would listen and wait for your response. That gives you a tone of voice that says it's a partnership, not me versus you or you versus us. And then educate yourself about school policies regarding the advanced academic program and the special education procedures. Because some of the questions we get, some of these teachers are not, if the teacher's an advanced academic teacher, they might not know anything about special education procedures. And if the special education teacher or educator, they might not know about advanced academic program. But since our kids are true e-learners, it's up to us to educate ourselves. The family support services are there, my office is there, but get as much information before you approach the school or even after you've approached the school. Communication is essential. And communication, oftentimes we think about communication just by talking. Communication involves listening. That's actually the most important means of communication. Listening to hear or listening to make suggestions. But listening is huge. We also have the verbal communication. We also have, writing. And so those are so vital to this partnership. But in order for you to determine what is the most effective way, it requires you talking to the school or the teacher to say, how would we communicate this school year? Which is the best way for you? Would you rather me use the communication, the Monday through Friday package you send, or the daily, some teachers in K-3 send the daily notes home. Would you rather me communicate that way? Or would you rather me communicate via email? Or is there a time you want me to come to the school to talk to you weekly or whatever? Or should I send email? Find out. It has to be something that works for both teams, both for the school and for the family. Remember, it's a partnership and it's bi-directional. So you can't use the daily note and then send 5 emails in one day and schedule a meeting. It's overwhelming. So we have to determine what is it that works for both parties in order for this communication, this partnership to be bi-directional. It has two-way communication. Need to make sure that you engage in agreed upon means of communication. So whatever you agree on, whichever means of communication you agree on, please keep to that means of communication. Because if you say to the school or to the teacher, I would send you an email every Wednesday or whatever Friday to capture what my concerns are or what my feelings are. And the teacher says, okay, that works for me. Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays or whatever. Or let's do the daily notes that I send back. You cannot go out of your way to then change it, because what it creates is it builds distrust. Or the school feels, oh, now I can't handle all these emails from one parent when I have 25 kids in my classroom. The teacher feels that way. So whatever you agree upon, if you want to change it, make sure it's okay with the other party. And continue even when things are going well. Communication is not only when things are not working or when you have concerns, even when things are not going well. If you say, I'm going to email you every Wednesday or every Friday. Make sure you continue, because that partnership, you want to maintain that partnership. You need to emphasize the positive. Start always with the positive. I'm glad my son has been in school for 4 days. I'm glad, blah, blah, blah. Just start with the positive, but address concerns clearly and directly. It should be positive. Offer sincere compliments and support, because it's a partnership. You're offering, compliments. I'm so glad that you sent this, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, make sure it's sincere. Don't make up stuff. But think about whoever is on the receiving end. How are you communicating with that person? Are they excited to hear what you have to say because they know you're supporting them? Or is you coming across as judgmental? This is so critical to this partnership. And always assume positive intent. Even if what you're perceiving, you think, oh, you're making an assumption. Find out, clarify, assume positive intent. Remember that this is a partnership in order to make sure that we're all working towards helping the child grow and thrive. So when you assume positive intent, it gives you that leeway to go back and clarify. Is this what you meant by this? And then I was that parent that would communicate with the school. This was usually my way of communicating, especially when my kids got to middle and high school, the toll of homework. If it was creating more stress, then I would say, I think we need to cut back on this. My child is really stressed out with this. Or I would choose which one homework, and I will email the teacher. She had this much homework. She has a test she's studying for. So I'm going to have to defer that we study for the test, and then we can do the homework later. And if my child has extended time, the teacher wants to hear from you, but don't wait till the child is already so stressed out and they don't want to go to school before you communicate the toll of homework on your child. Share your child's strengths and unique interests and needs and their challenges using an index card. That was my go-to. I used to write it first myself, and then I will have my child write hers, and then we'll compare, and then we'll find a common ground. But I would say you give this to all your teachers, your strengths, your unique interests, and how they can their challenges. I just say, give it to your teachers. We used to have it in a rubber band, and she would just hand it over to her teachers. And she'll remind the teachers. And then some of the teachers decided to use it for all kids. But whatever way, it's an easy way for your child to be part of this conversation, because they're the most important key stakeholder. And you can share practical ideas about how best to help your child learn. I was an educator, and I could always, I had my tools, and I had my toolkits of say, okay, let's organize. Let's think about how, multiplication. I did not like my child memorizing multiplication. So I reached out to the teacher and said, I can show you how I taught her to investigate the pattern so she didn't have to memorize it. Whatever way you're learning or sharing, you're sharing idea, but you're doing it in a way that it shows support, because we're doing this to support the learner, not just to tell the teacher, I know better than you. The teacher's an expert. They might choose a different way, or in a district like ours, they give them different ways to address curriculum. So you reaching out to them and saying, oh, this is how my child actually would learn this better. It's a support, not I'm telling you how to do your job. And then work with the school to identify the best way to monitor your child's progress. And I know in FCPS now, we have every parent has access to their child's grade 24/7. We have a parent view for SIS. We have everything. You have the calendar. Sometimes it can be overwhelming because not all teachers do it the same way, but find out. I want to have a way to monitor my child's progress. What would you advise me? Sometimes you might actually set up a time to show up at the school to learn. I need to set up a time so you can show me how to. Because if you're depending on your child might have a different way of doing it, but it's a partnership. You also want to have access to that. And this is so critical. as much as possible, communicate with teachers directly unless there's a reason not to. When teachers feel that principals or administrators are getting emails and not them, they feel distrust. Remember, we started trust. Trust is key. So email the teacher directly. And if there's a reason not to, if you haven't heard back from the teacher within 48 hours, if it's email, if it's a phone call, it's 24 hours, then you can CC the administrators. But don't do that first. Don't email the administrators without emailing the teachers first. It just creates that distrust. That's why I started with saying trust is so critical that we build a relationship based on trust. The partnership will not work if it's not based on trust. So many parents will think, why should I tell the school about big events? For our 2 e-learners, those things that you might not even know are burdensome to them. So letting the school know, especially about maybe big trip or grandma coming or grandma dying or grandma being sick or job loss or a new addition to the family, communicate with the school staff. So they at least know that when the child is sharing it, it's not something, it's not, at least they have a way to actually bring that into the conversation. But if the school staff is not aware of this, and sometimes it's creating stress or anxiety or a child not wanting to participate, then it's not a partnership. If we're seeing that both ends, the school and the families, we're growing both ends, then we need to communicate those big events. And I know everybody likes to volunteer, but now we're going to look at how is that partnership beyond volunteering. Before you, and I know we're already in October and many of our children have already gone back to school, but this is something that you can share with other families next year, and you can also take when the school starts next year. School. Make the first contact with your child's school and teacher at the beginning of the school year. Don't wait for them to contact you. You know your child has anxiety. Like a child like mine, beginning of school, August used to be challenging. So I will contact the school directly, find out who the teacher is, and then find a way to meet with them before the open house or before the back to school, whatever. I will be the first contact. Like I said before, educate yourself about the school's policy, AAP, special education services, support, and resources. Find out on your own. Reach out to your child's counselor at their after-school programs. What about the late bus? Is there anything that happens, or before in the morning? Does your school have SAC? Just find out on your own. Educate yourself. Again, attend parenting workshops when offered. I was a parent of one child who was gifted without an IEP and the other one had an IEP. But I didn't ever say, oh, I was so great at parenting that I didn't attend any parenting workshop. I did, because I wanted to hear from other parents' perspective as well. What were other parents doing that I could learn from? Don't ever feel like you know it all or nobody can help you. It's a partnership. So you always learning from other people. When you attend those back to school or school events about learning, be respectful of your child's teacher, regardless of how old they are. And be willing to learn what your child would learn to or do in school. Don't go there with the assumption of, I am going to go teach them how to teach. You don't go to your doctors telling your doctor how to treat your child. So when you're going there with that partnership mindset and growth mindset, you're willing to learn what your child will learn in school. Remember, always assume positive intent. Don't go be confrontational from the get-go and then set that tone of distrust. Always assume that parents and school staff both want what is best for students. And that's why our means of communication, our means of working together is so critical. As a parent, praise and thank your child's teachers. They are working really hard It's so difficult for us to hire teachers, not because we don't want to hire them, but we don't even have enough people applying to be teachers. I used to teach a grad school class at George Mason, and the reason it became harder was we didn't even have enough people applying to go to educate to be a teacher. So when we have those teachers, please work with them, support them, be on their team so that we can work together to support our two e-learners. You know, you can have your what you've identified, but work with the teacher, because what the teacher might be doing, you might not even know that that's your child's strength or that your child is doing something different at home. But when we are working in partnership, you can share what you think are your child's strength. The teacher can also say, oh, when we do this, this is what your child is a leader. Your child helps other people. Find out, because it's a partnership. And then agree on mutually agreed goals to meet their dual exceptional needs. So when you're meeting with the special educator and you're meeting with the advanced academic resource teacher, gather those strengths and needs, and then come up together with a goal that would best meet your child's dual exceptional needs. And then if your child has an IEP or has goals from their Section 504 plan, work with the school to find out how can we practice their IEP goals at home and the skills at home. For my child, it was organizational, it was self-management. So whatever the school was doing to support, I would say, what are you all doing? Then I would work with that child, my child too, to do the same thing at home. We're practicing, we're using the agenda, we're using all the strategies that, you know, has college success prep, you know, using her agenda, green, yellow, red, all those strategies the schools were using, we were using it at home so that it was continuing. It wasn't, we're going to do this at home and the school is going to do, talk to the school. What are you doing that I can support? We can practice it at home. And if you're an elementary school parent, it's different. And this is not an exhaustive list. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. This is a 1 hour presentation because I need time for you all to ask questions. But I try to put as much as possible into this presentation, but there are more things to do. So as an elementary school parent, it starts with you participating in all phases of the AAP and special education identification process. And I know in FCPS, those of you in second grade, it's about to begin in October. The referrals, the evaluation, eligibility, IEP or Section 504 plan development, whatever it is, you need to be part of that process. Contribute to the body of evidence that supports both the AA identification, meaning there's some things your child did outside school, or they're participating in leadership programs or Girl Scout or whatever, or art program outside school. You can submit those evidence. Submit that as evidence of how your child is developing in the setting besides school. Provide information and documentation on how the student learns and how their disability impacts the learning process. I knew that my child did not like it to be too quiet or like it to be too noisy and needed additional time to process information. So I would tell them that and say, if it's too loud and too much stuff going on in the classroom, she might not even do anything. So it's up to us to just say, this is what's happened in the past in first grade. This is how we were able to resolve it. Remember, it's a partnership. You're working to support the child. And the way you communicate it is what makes it a support, not telling. Again, you're being part of that developmental phase and implementation of both the AAP and special education services. So your participation or involvement does not end when your child is identified. You want to be part of the implementation. You want to ask questions. What is it that I need to do to help my child to continue? Can you give me an example of what the level of challenge might be so I know how to prevent my child from being very stressful? Or can you tell me ahead of time, is there a way for you to let me know what's going to go on so I can better help my child process it before school. It's a partnership. So it's not just the identification and then your responsibility, and you want to be ongoing. The implementation, the support, the emotional support, you want to be part of that. And then you want to help the school understand your child's strengths and limitations. What is it that they need to do? If the child has so many homework and they no longer can do their preferred activity at home, it's going to be a challenge. So help the school understand that, okay, this is how much my child can sit down for 1 hour after school to do homework, and after that, it creates stress. Let them know. It's a partnership. And then, as elementary school parents, this is truly where you start helping your child not be so dependent on you. What is it that your child can do by themselves, him or herself, and what others must do until the child learns how to compensate for their areas of need? When I go to school and I see either an IA or whatever, doing everything for the child, I'm like, no, we need to start building capacity for the children. Because if the child is letting everybody do everything for themselves, for them, speak for them, tell them how they're feeling, they no longer use their words, it's not helpful. You need to determine what is it that my child can do on their own and what is it that others need to do. And then how do we keep taking away from what the others are doing for my child so my child can start building some capacity and building muscles that they would need for later years in school. And we want you to serve as your child's advocate and teach your child how to advocate for them, for their own needs. Work with the school. How can I help my child be a better advocate? How can I help my child communicate? Like I said, you can work with your child to write their strengths on the index card, but maybe you want your child to be the one to give it out to their teacher, not you doing everything for them. There has to be something the child as a key stakeholder starts to know, so they know that it's a team effort in order to help to support them, and that it's okay for them to know about their areas of need and areas of strength. And here comes the middle school partnership. So family school partnerships tend to decline in middle school, especially if the experience for families in elementary school was not a positive one. Understanding the impact of adolescent changes in your child's behavior at home on their learning is very important, especially middle school. Middle school are those formative years, the ages 10 to 16 or 11 to 16, very vital to adulthood, to success in high school. So it's important, even if you didn't have a good partnership experience in elementary school, please start all over. Turn a new page. Assume positive intent. Contact the school. Let's start on a fresh start, because it's all about the child. So it's not about what happened in elementary school. You should not bring that to the middle school. Start on a new slate. So what does it look like? In middle school, we expect kids to be part of their transition IEP, and especially in 8th grade. If they haven't been part of it, they need to begin to be part of the planning for that IEP goal. Schedule a meeting with your child and the school team before the orientation for other students. I cannot stress this enough. You don't go to your child's school before orientation by yourself. You go with your child. You want to give your child the opportunity to ask questions. You don't want to be the only one speaking. In fact, you want to start with your child introducing themselves, telling them a little bit about themselves, and then you take it from there. And in middle school, you want to involve the elementary and middle school team in that transition IEP or the Section 504 plan. You want to get their input. How was this for my child last year? What is it that you did to support my child? And then so the middle school and the elementary school can see that they need to talk and they need to be on the same page so that the transition is smooth. Just because you had an IEP or accommodations still reevaluate it to see, is this really appropriate for my child going into middle school now with 7 classes, with all these extracurricular activities or new, setting that they didn't have last in elementary school? That's when you have the conversation. Get your student involved if they're already not. You need to ask questions. What did your teacher do last year to support you? What is it that you would like them to know about you this year? You want to get your child involved if they're already not. But my advice is that anytime from 4th grade, you want to start telling your child about their IEP goals, their accommodations, finding out if it's helpful. If it's not, then you need to change it. But you're doing school for them. We shouldn't be the ones taking all that and doing it all by ourselves. We need to get them involved early, but at least by middle school. Then make sure you know the middle school ART, the special education team, and then to see, are these goals appropriate for my child, accommodations based on the new setting, based on what you all know about your school? Can we take a look and see if these goals and accommodations are appropriate for my child needing both exceptional needs? And how can we change it if it's not? And then a lot of parents have IEP goals, accommodations, and they don't monitor it on their own. So you wait for the school to give you the report, but you should be monitoring it also. You should be asking questions. Where's this accommodation being used? How's this goal impacting his access to higher level courses? Do we need other accommodations to support my child? You should be asking those questions. And then find out. In middle school, you have 7 teachers or 6 teachers. All of them have different instructional strategies and learning expectations. So you need to talk to them and say, can we agree that this strategy might not be the best for my child, but you need to talk to them first. Like what are your instructional strategies? What is it that their expectations? So you know how to communicate with your child, and then back to the teacher. Remember, we have ongoing. It's not just one end. Determine what it is and do it. And then we're talking about the high school partnership. And I know in high school, people tend to say, oh, my child is grown now, or on the other side, parents can still do the same thing they did for their children in elementary school, not giving that power back to the child. You have to let go. As your child is developing, you need to start transitioning to giving them more ownership, more power to determine what's going to happen in their lives. Still, again, need to work with the school to determine school procedures, attendance, school policies, discipline, course selection, and other routine procedures. Like the time between classes, your child might need to leave class a little bit earlier. What time is lunch? Your child might be so hungry because they don't eat breakfast. If you don't tell the school, they would not know. You might need to pack snack for your child and find out what time can my child eat snack in class. Those are all things that we shouldn't leave up for, let's see what happens. We need to have those conversations before the child starts to shut down. So I would always advise parents to talk to the staff. Find out who your child has relationship with, who's your child comfortable with. Find out how you can have that conversation with your child about what are they doing, what are they learning, what is that conversation going to look like. Don't say to your child, how is school? If you have access to the learning platform, you can say, oh, I see that you had this test today, or that you're preparing for this project. How do you have that conversation as they develop? What do you want to do with your future? Can we go see the academy? Can we go on field trips? Is your school exposing you to this? Find out. What is it that you want to do in terms of internship? Does the school have opportunity for you to intern? Are there things that are outside school or the community that you have access to? What is it you need to find out from the school? What are the graduation requirements? When is this due? When can your child drop a class? Talk to your school team. It's a partnership, so you should not wait for them to tell you. You have all this and start asking those questions even before. You don't want to wait till it's too late to find out that those things have, like, I know December 1st, if you have a senior, when are the SAT, when is a PSAT? What is it that I can be doing at home? How can I help him get up early? All those things are things that we need to be talking about. Find out about resources, tutoring, mentoring, volunteering, extracurricular services of it. Find out everything that the school has that might be best for your child. You don't want to wait. You act, be proactive, and then you get all the information. And this is my go-to. This was how we survived 4 years of high school, even with my child who was my child who had an IEP. I always ask to meet with the child and her teachers, all teachers, a few weeks after school starts, to talk about their strengths and areas that your child needs help. I did not wait for the first quarter grade. I would set up a time. Say, oh, okay, 3 weeks into school, can we set up a time just to meet briefly to see what is it that my child is doing in your class? What are the strengths that you identified? What are the areas that my child needs help, so I can see, do we need tutoring? Do we need, what do we need? But don't wait till that first quarter grade comes, because then it might be too late. Your child might be so distraught that they don't want to continue to do school. So you be proactive, meet with the teacher. Learn how to use those online databases. You might need to go to the school, like I said, to learn how to use it. And encourage your child to self-advocate. For my child, I used to say, could you send your teacher an email every Friday or every Thursday? We agreed on with the teacher. As they got older, I would say, you send the email and you CC me. And that way the teachers knew I was still part of the conversation, but I was giving my child the authority to self-advocate. But every email my child sent, I would just say, CC me on the email, because I wanted my child to start taking that ownership. Because when they go to college, you no longer have the access to start emailing them. So you want to start practicing those goals now. Find out information on college. What does your child want to do? Do you want to visit the community college? Can your child take dual enrollment courses? Whatever it is, extracurricular activities, leadership programs, band, art, whatever. Internship is huge. Some kids are interning in middle school, in high school, but some kids don't even know it exists. Work with your school. Do they have counseling programs? Is there financial resources that the community provides? Their health, physical and emotional health. Can I get help beside if you don't have insurance, whatever it is? Talk to the counselor, the social workers. They're there to support every child. But most especially for our 2E kids, we want to reach out before the school reaches out to you. And these are references. Like, this presentation will be available. Like I said, I wanted to stop earlier today to give time for questioning and answers so that we can actually answer as many questions today. So questions and comments, this is the time. So Mary Beth, you can open it up to the questions and answers at this time.
All right, thank you. So just want to remind everyone that if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you should have a Q&A button, and we have a couple questions already there. So we're going to start with our first one. Nonye, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the literacy courses, probably at the middle and high school levels. But oftentimes this parent is saying there's only one option for an extra literacy course with students that have language-based learning differences at the middle school level. I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but would there perhaps be an opportunity to talk about, could there be more offerings, say during the intervention time?
So that's a
without
one-on-one
children missing. Yeah, right. Go ahead.
So that's a one-on-one conversation. So right now, because the county just purchased, literacy is new, we're trying something new
Yeah.
this, yeah. And so the district wants every teacher to use that first. But because of a child's IEP need, there's no reason why a parent or family cannot contact the school and say, this is something that has worked in the past for my child.
Yeah.
Can we use it? So it's a one-on-one conversation. And and just showing the data and providing evidence that it's been effective, it will become part of the IEP process to review and to see, can we do something different for this child?
Yeah. And I
Because
would
people
say,
have to be trained in order to use
yes.
whatever it is that, yeah. So if we are saying, don't use this, then we have to train the teachers to use whatever it is that they want to use.
No, and I will say, Nonye, that sometimes when we've talked with families about maybe talking with their schools about getting a bit creative with some intervention time and maybe talking about that intervention period and how might a child get some of those smaller instructional pieces, sometimes even executive functioning skills and that kind of thing, maybe within that advisory time.
And that I want parents to really, truly, families here today, please, if your child has executive functioning goals, please, please, please reach out to the school and say, when are these goals being explicitly taught?
Right.
You want to find out, because if they're telling you it's during intervention time, remember it's a partnership. You want to find out, how are you teaching it so that I can replicate or practice that with my child at home? It should not be only at home or only at school. So please reach out to your schools today if your child has those goals and say, when are these goals being explicitly taught? Because we cannot have those goals and not teach the goals.
Right on. I absolutely totally agree. So our next question is around, I think this parent is looking to make some connections with other 2E families. And so how, um, is it okay to ask school or teacher, are there other 2E families? How might a parent be able to connect with the other 2E families in their school?
So I know because of confidentiality, the school
Right.
will not release that information. But
Right.
if a parent is part of PTA, when I was a PTA president for so many years, and then when my kids left school, I was the PTA liaison at the school I worked at. And from that, I knew that the president had a child who was 2E. If you're not part of the parent community, it's truly difficult to just expect the school to give you that information. The school will not really, but if you're part of the PTA or you volunteer for breakfast or whatever, then that's where you start getting information and say, okay, you have a 2E child. What class is your child? Or is your child an older kid? You can find out information from parents, not from the school will not release the name of a child that has an IEP because of confidentiality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend there are some there are some groups out on Facebook and, so other social media venues that, get our local groups. I know FCPS does have a pretty prolific 2E parent Facebook community. So definitely, that's another place to look. All right. So the next question is around, and I know you'll be able to address this, that is asking about how do we identify, first of all, 2E students? I don't think we have an identification process in FCPS. This is a family who's new to the area. Could you just explain real quickly, because this may be a new parent to our webinar, how students
so there's no
FCPS
states,
looks.
there's no school,
Right.
there are no identification for 2E anywhere. So a child is either identified for AAP program, and then there might be some discrepancies that the school is noticing either from the or from just the psychological report. Or sometimes a child might be identified for special education, and then the teachers are saying, oh, this child has way more knowledge than, and so there's no way of saying this is the rubric to know if the child is 2E. But I always say the child has a psychological report and they've done that. If it's a 2E child, you see that discrepancy. It's always there. It's glaring. And then the work samples or the parent information and other things, it's just not the psychological tool. We also have multiple data. It could be work sample. It could be, oh, my child is very verbal, but when it comes to writing, this is what they produce. Or my child, the only interest my child has is around math, but struggles to put their thoughts in right. So there's no one way. It's just, that's what makes it challenging. But it's just, you have to get the psychological report, or if the special education is masking the ability, you might not see that. You might just see a flat child. But that psychological report will show, but evidence from what you're noticing at home, what the other teachers have told you in the past, just not what they say, but you want to have concrete example to show, and then we go from there. But there's no one way of identifying a true kid. There's no.
Yeah, and FCPS, I just did put in the chat, doesn't really have an official 2E designation. We don't designate children as 2E, but kids who have kind of both these exceptionalities,
or
we think
multiple
of them.
exceptionalities.
Well, exactly, at least, right? But certainly I would say to this parent who posed that question, certainly reach out to Nonye, reach out to us here at the Family Resource Center, and we can kind of walk you through and answer your questions specifically.
Yeah. So that parent can reach out to me. My email is here. And then we can go from there to see what is it that you're seeing that makes you think that your child might be 2E. Let's start from there.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. So another parent is just saying their child doesn't have an IEP or 504, but does have ADHD. Could this parent ask for support for executive functioning skills at school?
So if your child doesn't have an IEP or 504 plan, I would just say, work with your child's teacher to say, if you have a diagnosis, to say, oh, how might you help in supporting my child? It's a partnership, but without the IEP or 504 plan, that child is not 2E. That it's just a child who might be struggling with other things. So the IEP and the 504 plan is what really makes that child a 2E. So there has to be those dual exceptionalities on paper. And I know it's very annoying, but we have to have the paper in order for the school to really do it officially. But there's no reason you cannot reach out to your child's teacher to say, these are my concerns. How can you help me support my child in this area?
And, I think that's really the best thing, having that open communication and just saying, this is what we're seeing. And, how can we work together? Again, how can we partner to support this need that my student has? So absolutely.
Remember, it's a partnership. And you being proactive, you acknowledging that the teachers might be overwhelmed, that, all that. You go back to this presentation. I hope that more parents will look at this presentation because it's the tone, is the means of communication. It's like, how can I help you help my child? I always said that. Absolutely. How can I help? What is it that I can put in place? What is it that you can put in place? There are things that I've worked with at home that might be helpful. And I know it's not probably just for my child, but I'm just willing to help. It's a partnership. You can't go wrong when it's a partnership.
Absolutely.
Built on trust.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So another family has had some private testing around kind of understanding that advanced academics and had private testing done. When the child was evaluated at school, they were not found eligible for the level 4 service. How might a family partner with their school to have a conversation and advocate around the private testing that they've had done and be able to show the school that there are other things perhaps that were missed during that school evaluation, because sometimes our kids have a good day or a bad day, and maybe are not showing their full potential on the evaluations that they're taking at school. How might that conversation happen for a family, Nonye?
Okay. So every parent has every child has an opportunity to do a retake of the COGAT. So if that was a child that took the call, like several parents have reached out to us and we've reached out to the school to say, please include the child in the retake. So if the child wasn't a good day and the child took the COGAT, you can request that this year the child be given an opportunity to retake that. And then if your child, so we don't base the identification for level 4 AAP just based on the testing. There has to be multiple data points, like the walk samples, the parent referral, the teacher's gifted behavior rating scale, which is going away. We have the HOPE scale, and teachers are the ARTs and teachers are working on using that now. So going back to revisit it, it's not a one-shot deal. You can reapply. You can reapply and say, I have more evidence now to show that, or can I talk to you about this? But you can reapply and see again, bring out more evidence, talk more about your child, collect work samples, get work samples from the school that shows that demonstrate that your child has intellectual ability, but also has the disability there too. So it's a conversation that's ongoing, but using multiple data points is actually the best way to show your child's ability to handle that level 4 work, or that they can be identified for level 4.
Yeah. No, and Nonye, thank you for highlighting the fact that it's not always a one and done, opportunity for students to be able to participate in advanced academics. So, no, thank you for that. So another parent is really so happy to hear about your discussion around communication and how to support, having that partnership with the school. But oftentimes I guess this parent is concerned about, it takes perhaps is a lot for a teacher to handle, and without all that communication and setting up meetings and all of that. Um, how might some conversations happen with the teacher, and the family, that doesn't become overwhelming, even on both sides?
So like I said, elementary parents, elementary families, once you meet with your teacher, you say, oh, I would like to engage in this ongoing communication with you. And so it's bi-directional. What would you prefer? Give the teachers an option to say, teachers have handled it. I have a teacher right now who does the daily, behavior chart that she sends back and forth. But the teacher became overwhelmed when, in addition to the daily back and forth, the mom was sending close to 5 emails a day. And the teacher, just kind of freaked out. So whatever means of communication that you decide with the teacher will say, oh, I don't mind you emailing me once a week, and then we can meet whatever month. But you got to come up together and decide what is it that works best for you. And you're not writing a thesis. You're not writing a thesis to the teacher. Even when things are going well, you can say, and this is my weekly check-in to let you know, thank you for all that is going on. Thank you for whatever it is. Teachers agree on that means of communication, and parents, families, and teachers agree on the means of communication and how often. Then you stick to it. And you find out from the teacher, is this still working for you? It's a partnership. It is a partnership. You don't want to wait until the child is having problems to initiate that. You want to initiate it before, so that it's ongoing.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So another parent is of course also recommending the FCPS 2E Facebook group. So that's great. And then also again, family is they're very thankful for your presentation, and understand oftentimes there's a lot of parent driven efforts But curious if the school and teachers are receiving the same information. So they have the same expectations, like being proactive and asking for meetings and all of that.
So this presentation is from the parent viewpoint. When I
Right.
meet with schools and I do the same presentation, I'm doing it from the school viewpoint. So they're receiving the same information. Like I told you, we're all different stakeholders. Everybody's receiving information, but from their perspective, like when I'm meeting with the school right after this presentation, and they're getting ready to organize their own presentations for their faculty. And that's what it's going to be based on what is your role as a school in making sure that this partnership with your 2E families remains effective and it's strong. So you're getting it as a parent, they're getting it from the school viewpoint. But I'm going to be honest with you, not all schools have invited me to do this PD for their faculty. So it's on a good need-based basis. So if a school doesn't see it as a need, they don't ask me to do it. But schools that have said, okay, we need to know how we can support our 2E families, then we do the presentation from the school's partnership viewpoint.
Yeah. So I know this is a hot topic, and it's around some of the electives and courses that kids I think take it. I think this is around high school, and sometimes our 2E kids, because of some of their executive functioning skills or some of just because of their learning supports that they need, are often discouraged from taking foreign language or higher level classes. What might that conversation look like for a family in having, in having that conversation with their school team to make sure that a child's not excluded from those courses? And, what might some supports possibly look like, maybe
So
in
it
some of those
starts with
classes?
if a child's need is executive function, the school must, because if it's in the IEP, the
Yeah.
school must demonstrate how they're explicitly teaching those skills. Because those skills then has accommodations to support the child in that setting. The IEP goes with the child to any setting. If the child has met the requirement for the course, then the child cannot be excluded based on their IEP goals or needs. So parents have to have that conversation with school. Like, I want to know, is my child being excluded from this course because of their IEP goals and needs? Because their accommodation is supposed to go with them to that setting. Whatever the accommodation. So a kid might have daily reminders or whatever the IEP goal or the accommodation, please know that those IEP goals and accommodation goes with the child to the different settings, not some settings. But if the child has the need and wants to take the course and the accommodations are in place, then the child should be given an opportunity to be enrolled in the course.
Yeah. And I think it's just, it's having those conversations and being very transparent that, the child does have the right to take those courses, especially when I think about foreign language. And then it's a conversation with the school team as to how that student would get their accommodations and supports there, right?
So I'll give you an example. There's a kid last year at a high school who took the French exam, AP French, and we had to find a reader because that wasn't her accommodation. A reader who was a native French speaker. The reader came from a middle school, but was there to read the exams for her that AP. So the accommodation goes with the child. That did not dissuade the child from being in that French AP French.
Yeah.
But parents need to understand first, that's why I said, where is this executive functioning skills being taught? How often is my child getting the explicit instruction? Because then you need to take that, whatever instruction, replicate it at home. Support your child in meeting the IEP goals and really working on those skills, because those executive function skills can be taught at all levels, and kids need them forever to survive life.
They do.
So it's not something that goes away. So that's why I said it has to be taught. It cannot be on the IEP goal and is not being taught. So if there's anything you all take from this workshop, is that if your child has an executive functioning goal, your email to the school is, I would like to know where my kid is explicitly, use that word, explicitly being taught the skills.
Yeah. No, Nonye, I can't agree with you more. And I will say that if, and I do want to let our community here that's on with the webinar, and anyone that watches after, if you're not sure how to communicate your concerns or how to communicate with your child's school, please do reach out to us at the Family Resource Center. We can help you kind of build those tools and be able to communicate in a way with your school that continues to build the collaboration and the partnership that I know each of you want to have with the school. And I just, again, on behalf of your child, we're here because our children are at the center of everything that we do.
Yeah, please, please, please. It's a partnership. And if you're not sure of, like Mary Beth said, if you're not sure of that communication, you can, how do you even begin to have this conversation?
Right.
I would love to partner.
Yep.
You can say, I would love to partner with you and the school staff in order to support my child. How can I support? What would it look like? These are my availability, but these are my child's IEP goals. Use the index card like I showed you. It's non-threatening, but it forces everyone to be at the table looking at the child from that strength and talent base and then addressing their needs. So please reach out to them. Because like I said, schools have so many children, which is why I said the partnership, but you have a role, you know your child, to reach out first, be the first person, and then let the school take it from there.
Right. Oh, Nonye, well, thank you very much. We don't have any other questions. And we're very, And thanks everyone for being here with us today. Stay tuned for our next in our series coming up. And we will look forward to talking with you all again. And certainly let us know if you need anything from us or from Nonye. And we hope that each and every one of you has a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. And please tell other parents who might not have had time to watch this to go watch it on their phone.
Yes.